Let me tell you a story about a rep I worked with. We'll call her Jessica. Jessica was on the verge of closing a huge deal. She'd done everything right. She built a strong relationship, delivered a killer demo, and handled all the buyer's objections. The decision maker was on board, but then he said, "Let's circle back in Q2." Sound familiar? Jessica's deal stalled because the buyer didn't feel any urgency to move forward. And here's the kicker: when a deal gets delayed, it doesn't just sit still, it starts to die. Competitors creep in, priorities shift, budgets disappear. Jessica had two choices: wait and hope the buyer would come back next quarter, find a way to create urgency and get the deal done now. She chose the second option. Here's what she did. She dug deeper into the buyer's priorities and uncovered that their team was losing $20,000 every month because of delays caused by their current system. She framed the cost of waiting and asked a simple question: what would it mean for your team to stop losing $20,000 a month starting next week? The buyer paused and said, "Let's move forward." The deal closed that week. Here's the lesson: urgency doesn't come from pressure, it comes from clarity. When buyers understand the cost of waiting or the opportunity they'll miss, hesitation disappears. But here's the mistake most salespeople make: they think urgency is about being pushy. They rely on tired tactics like, "This deal expires tomorrow. We can only offer this discount until Friday." And while those tactics might work occasionally, they often damage trust and push buyers away. Here's the reality: true urgency comes from helping buyers see why acting now is in their best interest. In today's episode, we're going to break down 3 proven strategies to create urgency the right way. Uncover the buyer's real timeline and priorities. Use value driven urgency tactics that motivate action. Frame the cost of inaction to show the impact of waiting. By the end of today, you'll have the tools to close deals faster without ever coming across as pushy or desperate. Let's dive into tactic 1: how to uncover the buyer's real timeline and priorities. Let's dive into tactic 1: how to uncover the buyer's real timeline and priorities. Here's the thing: you can't create urgency unless you first understand what's driving or stalling the buyer's decision. Too often, sales reps take the buyer's timeline at face value. We're looking to revisit this next quarter. We need a few months to think it over. But what do these timelines actually mean? Are they based on real priorities or are they just stalls? If you don't dig deeper, you'll never uncover what's really driving their decision or what's holding them back. Your job in this step is to get clarity on what's truly driving the buyer's timeline, the pain or opportunity behind their decision. What happens if they don't act now? Here's a simple 3-step framework to uncover their real timeline and priorities. Ask targeted discovery questions. Tie their timeline to their pain or goals. Clarify the consequences of waiting. Let's break this down. Step 1: ask targeted discovery questions. The first step is to ask questions that help you uncover what's really driving the buyer's timeline. Most reps stop at surface level answers, but the best reps dig deeper. Here are 3 questions you can use. What's driving your timeline for this decision? This question gets the buyer to explain what's influencing their timing, whether it's budget, internal priorities, or a specific business goal. What happens if you wait 6 months to solve this problem? This question highlights the potential risks or costs of waiting. You'll often hear pain points you can use to build urgency. Is there an event or deadline coming up that would make solving this problem a priority? Sometimes buyers have internal deadlines like a quarterly review, budget cycle, or new initiative. You need to uncover these triggers. Example: let's say you're selling a CRM platform and the buyer says, "We're not looking to make a decision until next quarter." Most reps would stop there, but a top rep would dig deeper. What's driving that decision for next quarter? Are there other priorities taking focus right now? What happens if your team keeps struggling with disorganized workflows for the next 3 months? By asking these questions, you might uncover that their sales team is missing quotas because of inefficiencies. Now you've got a pain point to work with. Step 2. Tie their timeline to their pain or goals. Once you've uncovered what's driving the timeline, the next step is to tie their timing back to their pain points or goals. Here's how this works. If the buyer has a specific pain, like lost revenue, team burnout, or inefficiencies, show them how solving that problem now will help them achieve their goals faster. If the buyer has a goal, like hitting a revenue target or launching a new initiative, help them see how your solution accelerates their success. Example. Let's say the buyer says, we're losing $10,000 a month because our systems aren't integrated, but we're planning to revisit this next quarter. You respond, I hear you're losing $10,000 a month. That's $30,000 between now and next quarter. What impact would saving that money have on your team's budget this year? By tying their timeline to their pain, you're reframing their perspective. You're helping them see that waiting has a real cost and acting now creates real value. Step 3. Clarify the consequences of waiting. The final step is to help the buyer understand the consequences of waiting without being pushy or manipulative. Here's the key. Don't tell them what the consequences are. Help them arrive at it themselves by asking the right questions. Here are a few examples. What happens if this problem isn't solved in the next few months? How will this impact your team's goals if you wait? What would it mean for your business if you could fix this problem now instead of 3 months from now? Example. If you're selling cybersecurity software and the buyer says, we're putting this off until next year, you could ask, how much risk are you comfortable taking on in the meantime? What would the impact be if a breach happened before next year? Here's what happens. By asking questions that highlight the risks of waiting, you're helping the buyer see the urgency for themselves. You're not pushing them. You're guiding them toward the realization that acting now is in their best interest. Here's the key takeaway. Buyers don't always recognize the urgency on their own. Your job is to help them connect the dots by uncovering their priorities, tying their timeline to their pain or goals, and clarifying the consequences of waiting. Urgency isn't about pushing, it's about guiding. When you ask the right questions, buyers realize for themselves why acting now makes sense, and that's when timelines move, deals close, and hesitation disappears. Here's your challenge for the week. On your next 5 calls, ask these 3 questions to uncover the buyer's real timeline. What's driving your timeline for this decision? What happens if you wait 6 months to solve this problem? Is there an event or deadline coming up that makes this a priority? Tie their timeline back to their pain or goals. Show them what waiting will cost and what acting now will gain. Track the results. Notice how many buyers move their timeline forward when you help them see the impact of waiting. Urgency doesn't come from pressure, it comes from clarity. Start asking these questions and you'll start seeing deals move faster. All right, that's tactic 1.
1,